Thank you. So it was terrifying getting here today. I was flying in, and in the cockpit of an airplane there are hundreds of controls, but there are two that are absolutely critical to getting you safely back on the ground. One is the yoke, sort of like a steering wheel, except that instead of going right and left, it also goes up and down. Push and the houses get bigger, pull and the houses get smaller. And this is very important as you're landing. The second super important control is the throttle. Push fast, plane speeds up. Pull back, plane is supposed to slow down. Both of these controls failed as we were coming in today, which got me thinking about death. So I thought, well, that's a good theme for a speech, good way to unite the audience. We're all going to die at some point. And let's talk about it, but probably not in the same way. So I was thinking, where is the highest chance of dying? Like statistically, if you carved out 1 square kilometer of Earth and you plopped yourself there, what has the most venomous, deadliest creatures per unit of area? Does anyone recognize this area behind me? It's the Amazon. It is the Amazon. Of course, if you're in business, the deadliest thing that you can encounter is this Amazon. And this is what happened to Square. So we had a horrible thing happen to my little startup back in 2014. We were still a startup. We had a little product. And Amazon decided they wanted to take over our market. So they copied our product, they undercut our price, and they added the Amazon brand name, expecting us to just die. And so actually Keith was with us at the time. We sat down, we had board meetings, we asked ourselves, what could we do? We looked for any examples of other companies that had survived an attack by Amazon when they were a startup, and we found nobody. It was a completely empty set. So then I'm trying to express what it feels like. I thought I would use, does anyone look at this shot and think the seals got a chance of making it? No. Evidently, according to the photographer, this seal survived. Could we get the timer working? Otherwise, I'll just talk all day. Or somebody needs to give me a phone, because I got no idea what time it is. All right. Anyway, so we met, we strategized, we looked for companies that had already beaten Amazon. We couldn't find any. And so this was our question, and this was our answer. No, I mean, literally, what do? I would love to be as powerful as Amazon. I would love to have their balance sheet. I would love to have their talent. I would love to have their brand name. We had none of that. Now, we were pretty busy serving our customers, but we had none of the resources that Amazon had. So we just kept doing what we were doing. And amazingly, it worked. So then the question was, why? Why did it work? How does a startup beat Amazon? And we were excited that we won, but then this question just nagged at me, and it nagged at me for years. And I started looking for an excuse other than just luck, because I don't believe you get that lucky. And I found this pattern that I was trying to describe to somebody. And then when I realized what had actually happened to Square was not unique. It actually happens to a lot of companies. Not the majority of companies, but certainly enough that it was not an accident. But when I tried to describe this phenomenon to somebody, I realized that the English language, and unfortunately I only speak English, but at least in English there is no word to describe what happened to us. Because I had discovered the ancient definition of the word entrepreneur. The original definition of entrepreneur. Today, entrepreneur means somebody who starts a business. Okay? You start a coffee shop, you're an entrepreneur. You start a nutrition company, you're an entrepreneur. That wasn't what it originally meant. And the original thing that united entrepreneurs was something that I think unites everybody in this room, and that is entrepreneurs lack access to the world's most powerful force. So what is the world's most powerful force? What is the thing that always works? Copying. Yes, she can read. Congratulations. No, copying. It's the way we solve problems. So what is the thing that we all have in common? Everything, everybody in this room, everything in this room, what is it that unites all of us? Copies. We're copies. There's nothing original about any of this shit. Like this chair, whoever invented this chair, this is not an original chair. I've never sat in it before, but you know what? It feels like a chair. Whoever invented this thing didn't invent the chair. They copied it. I'm a copy. I'm a very successful copy. So are you. We're genetic copies. We are wired at our DNA, at our basic level, and certainly in our society, to replicate, because most new things don't work. Try something new, good luck. You want to try something new? You're taking your chances. And I was going to try to illustrate how we try to hook people's interest with a very inappropriate ad. And I didn't want to have to go through sensitivity training again. So I would just like you to picture how you are sold products by harnessing the most primal urge there is. Picture the sexiest, most dripping South Beach ad you can imagine right behind me. And then you ask yourself, what are those marketers trying to grab hold of? It's our urge to copy ourselves. It's just wired into us. As a matter of fact, somebody in New York the other day told me to go copy myself. But what happens if you can't do this? This is the thing that unites entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs are people who, at least in the original ancient definition, find themselves in a position where for some reason or other, there's nothing to copy. They can't copy. For some reason, they can't do what everybody already knows how to do. And in this situation, you're forced to, and I mean forced to, you don't choose to, but it's sort of a last resort. You choose to innovate. So how did this path happen at Square? Because we ended up in a weird situation. We were not able to copy our original product. We weren't able to copy almost anything about the original Square product. We were forced, because of a decision that Jack and I made, to serve my friend Bob. Now, I would normally show you a photo of Bob. It's better to show you a photo of Bob's car. You won't see these on South Beach. This is the 1992 Chevy Corsica. This is the official model from this is the official photo from Chevrolet. It is not Bob's Corsica. If it was Bob's Corsica, there would be a bungee cord hooked under this wheel well and across the hood. And the bungee cord, if you own a 92 Chevy Corsica and you live in St. Louis, Missouri, is an important aftermarket item, because we salt the roads and the hood latch rusts out, and if you don't have the bungee cord, bad things happen. And a bad thing happened to my friend Bob one night as he was coming in to my glass studio to do some work. He was crossing the Mississippi River, the bungee cord lets go. Immediately, the wind catches the hood and it flips it back over the windshield, completely obscuring his view of the road. Most people would pull over. This is not what my friend Bob does. He leans out the window, kind of in a way that would be familiar to pet owners. He probably has a dog. But it's raining. So he's getting pelted in the face with rain, like Mother Nature is telling him to get off the road. This is not what Bob does. He drives 17 miles at night in the rain, looking out the gap between the dashboard and the hood, which you can see neatly folded over the front of his car. This is my friend Bob in his Cardinals cap. There's the bungee cord. And this was Square's first model user. Why do I show you Bob's car? So Bob and I don't have a lot in common, but we have a profession in common. We are both professional glass blowers. So I'm an artist. I make stuff that nobody needs. So does Bob, except that Bob is a better artist than me, flat out. He's stronger than I am. He's more creative. He's just flat out more dexterous. He can execute and conceive of things that I can't do. In fact, there's only one area where I can kind of outperform Bob in the glass studio, and that is I made a lot more money than he did. And that always bothered me, because from time to time, when Bob is having a rough time, he's had to live in the back of this '92 Chevy Corsica. So that is not just his transportation, that is also his house. And I couldn't understand it, because I made a very good living as a glass artist. Okay, I made enough money to buy my own airplane. Okay, you can make a great living glass blowing, but Bob couldn't. And the question was why? And the answer is that there are a few differences between Bob and me when it comes to dealing with bankers. And that is, though I don't often do it, well, actually, shit, I'm on the Fed now. Well, I do it a lot now. But back in the day, I would put on suits and go in and get bank loans, and I would get credit card processing rights. Couldn't get Amex, but got enough to keep the studio going. But Bob was excluded from this entire world. And if you're trying to sell something like art, which nobody really needs, and you can't take the form of payment that they have, you don't sell too much, and you end up living in the back of a car. So the question that Jack and I were wrestling with, and this photo was on my desk when we were starting Square, was could we build a system that included all these merchants, all these invisible people like my friend Bob, who didn't have access to the same tools that the rest of us did. So that's what we built. We built an entire payment system that was completely outside of the banking world, because the banking world was built to basically exclude folks like Bob. So let's talk about this flight that I took. It turns out I was pretty lucky, because when the controls stopped working the way they normally do, when the throttle stopped speeding the plane up and slowing it down, and the yoke stopped bringing the plane up or down. Are there any pilots in the room? You guys know what I'm talking about, don't you? Because pilots these days are trained. All pilots these days are trained to recognize this area of reverse control. It's this weird quirk of aerodynamics where if I had a whiteboard in 20 minutes, I could explain to you why, as you're getting close to the ground and you're slowing the plane down, the throttle and the yoke stop performing as they normally do. But it's no big deal. Your life is not in danger when you fly, because pilots these days are trained to handle this invisible line. But it is an invisible line. There's no light that lights up. You just have to know your airplane, you have to know your airspeed, and you have to recognize the moment when you cross this particular airspeed and things don't work the way they normally do. And this was the thing that I saw that united all of basically my history, which was, pretty rocky, pretty failure-ridden history. I never knew that there was this line in the world of creating, where on one side of the line, the side of the line where we spend most of our lives, we know what to do. Or if we don't, there's a YouTube video, there's an expert, there's a conference you can go to, there is some person who knows how to do it. If you get their knowledge, then you too can copy your way to success. And I think copying is absolutely the best solution to almost every problem. It's probably the best thing you should, it's probably the first thing you should do. I hate people who say, I want to be innovative. Why? Okay, you want to be innovative? Go be innovative with food, all right? There's a bunch of food that they've laid out for us. And fuck that stuff. Run out into the garden, find a plant you've never seen before, and eat it. That's innovative, right? Maybe nobody's eaten that before. Maybe it's really good. Maybe you will discover something that gets you a Michelin star. Maybe not. Look, innovation's a last resort, and the reason I've been sort of on this, literal soapbox for years talking about innovation is that I noticed this really interesting phenomenon. And that is, we are so ingrained in copying, and we are so taught that there is a formula, and if we don't know the formula, we are not qualified to proceed, that I've seen a lot of potentially great entrepreneurs stop. So I wrote a book about this. It's called The Innovation Stack. I'm not trying to plug you on the book. I will tell you the reason I wrote it is I've seen too many bright people stop. And one of the most heartbreaking things when I wrote the book was I was in this guy's apartment, and it was in Manhattan. He had a painting on the wall that was worth more than everything in my world. Take my square stock, take everything. At the time I was sitting there, this guy had one painting that exceeded my entire net worth. And he was reviewing my book with me, and he read the book, and he said, Jim, if I'd had this 20 years ago, I would have not quit. Because he had a company that was bumping down this road of innovation. And I mean real innovation, and I mean a mess. Because if you're being truly innovative, you do eat a lot of plants that cause gastric distress. And he quit. He says, I gave up. Look, most of the time, you should wait. Most of the time, you should hesitate. I think you would be an idiot today to go fly an airplane without getting trained. Because you can go out to Opelika, and there are a bunch of CFIs, and they'll take you up, and they'll train you, and they'll teach you about the area of reverse command, and they will show you how to fly an airplane. But let's think about the Wright brothers for a second. Were they qualified pilots? Could they be? Is it possible that either Orville or Wilbur Wright could have been qualified to do what they did? No. They did it anyway. Progress is always made by people who are unqualified. So if you have a problem, if you see something you care enough about, which is like, in my case, getting my friend to not have to live in the back of his car, it may set you down a path where people haven't gone before. And if you find yourself on that path, what will happen is every fiber of your being, right down to your DNA, and certainly your family and the people who care about you, are going to say, whoa, stop. And they may say, you're not qualified to do that. Or they may say, nobody's ever done it that way. And yet, that is what progress is. Thank you.